Hello and welcome to the radiotimes.com Doctor Who podcast with me, Huw Fullerton,
and me, Morgan Jeffrey.
And surprise special guest, Christopher Eccleston. No, that's not happening. But you almost believed it because he is making a habit this week of making surprise appearances where you didn't expect him. I think that kind of made sense, what I just did there. This is obviously the news that Christopher Eccleston is coming back to Doctor Who. He's doing some new audio adventures for Big Finish. He's doing 12, I believe, starting next May. The first one's going to be released. And it's really exciting because, Christopher Eccleston's not done Doctor Who for a really long time. And just last week, I think we were speculating about how unlikely it was that he'd do Big Finish. Were we not? Or something like that?
It's almost like he went out of his way to spite us. Yeah, we were talking about how, because he is the Doctor who has stepped away from the series and hasn't ever returned to the role in any way, shape or form, in any capacity. He has the shortest era, and now that's all going to be blown out of the water.
That's true. It's going to be, technically a 15-year era. He's just been lying low.
Yeah. It's exciting, isn't it? It's exciting for the, even if it does throw everything we were talking about last week out of whack, it's exciting for the least served Doctor to finally have his era be expanded. More adventures for the Ninth Doctor, who was, after all, only on our screens for 3 months, which is mad when you think about it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's as well because a lot of ex-Doctors have done stuff since then. David Tennant has done Big Finish, and he's done little catch-ups and stuff. And we've had Paul McGann obviously did a very long. He was kind of the most comparable to Christopher Eccleston in terms of he had a very, very short tenure on screen, but then did stuff afterwards, which made it last a little longer. It's really exciting because Christopher Eccleston was very limited. There wasn't really much wiggle room. He turns up pretty soon after regeneration, has that adventure, that series of adventures with Billy Piper. Then he regenerates at the end, and that's it. He was a real kind of curio, kind of one-off, and that was it, kind of thing. And Christopher Eccleston obviously didn't get that whole long period in the role because we kind of knew he was leaving as soon as he started. So I do think this is really interesting. And also, I think you tweeted something to this effect. It's quite a nice, if not ending to the story, but continuation of Christopher Eccleston's Doctor Who story, where once you'd struggle to get him to talk about it in an interview at all, and now he's doing it. He's playing the Doctor again. I mean, It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not just exciting for fans to, no offense to the various sound-alikes, but there is something about having Eccleston himself involved that gives these new adventures a stamp of authenticity. It's incredibly exciting for fans to have the Ninth Doctor back, but also it's just quite lovely and heartwarming that he feels now positive enough towards the show and the character to return after 15 years. And it is easy to be snarky and say, oh, COVID, he was probably short of work and that's why he did it. But actually, in the original press release, Jason Haigh-Ellery, who's the chairman of Big Finish, was at pains to point out that talks had begun with Eccleston in February. I wonder, possibly preempting those kind of snarky comments. And also, famously, Christopher Eccleston is a man of strong morals, who sticks to his beliefs, which is why he stayed away from Doctor Who for so long, because he didn't have a particularly enjoyable experience on the TV show, and he felt like that tainted the show for him somewhat. So I don't think being short of TV roles for a few months is the kind of thing that would see him totally turn around on a moral decision on his beliefs if he was truly opposed to it. And he's talked as well, hasn't he, about having started to re-embrace Doctor Who a little by dipping his toes into the convention waters. He's felt this real affection and love from the fans, and I think he wrote in his memoir that had healed something in him. So I think it is partly thanks to that he's agreed to return to the role.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, he said in his memoir, I now only have affection for Doctor Who. I can see there were dark bits, but it's kind of brought me back up to this, lovely fan experience. And I think it's kind of almost like he's giving something back to the fans by doing this. I mean, it's funny because when we got this announcement and we got sent it, as we sometimes do a few days early, and you and I were both like, "Oh my god, that's incredible!" Immediately.
Not our exact words, but
no, but keeping it clean for the kids listening in. I'm sure there are loads. You just kind of tweeted about it, kind of alluding to it, and it was really interesting seeing what everyone was speculating we were talking about, because loads of people were like, oh, is it about the main series? Is it about this? Is it about that? And it was like this. But the thing is, like, for me, I was like, none of that stuff. I was like, I still think this is more exciting, more or less.
Yeah. I genuinely, I think it's more exciting than a missing episode or the fact that series 13 has started filming, which of course would be an exciting announcement, but we know that's going to come at some point. This was totally out of the blue. This is something you would never expect in a million years. I was more just offended that when I tweeted about being excited about something, people automatically assumed it was Doctor Who. When I said nothing about Doctor Who, look, I have lots of stuff going on in my life. Look, and the fact that it was about Doctor Who is neither here nor there. You know, I get excited about lots of things, but yeah, fair. All right, I'll hold my hands up. It was about Doctor Who on this occasion.
You guys can't see this, and Morgan's decrying all this in front of a row of Doctor Who books. Doctor Who and the Cricket Men, I believe I can see. The Prison Planet. There's a little TARDIS. I believe that's a Tom Baker Mr. Men figurine to your left.
It's all true, but then what you also can't see is that Huw has a virtual TARDIS backdrop on this Zoom call. So
to be fair, you've got me there. Yeah, I do have that. I shouldn't have started throwing stones. People in TARDISes shouldn't throw stones.
Glass TARDISes.
Yeah. But no, honestly, it is really exciting to have Christopher Eccleston back. Partly because it feels like we can have an Eccleston era. Like we've said recently, Paul McGann kind of got his era, you know, even though he was only in the TV movie because of Big Finish. And, you know, so far there's only one, you know, Big Finish series. You know, 12 stories to be fair, so it's going to be quite long. But, you know, this is the start of something. But, you know, already I think we've been trying to think about, you know, where this could fit. Because unusually, compared to other Doctors, because he only did the one series, and because we kind of see more or less his beginning and end in the series, because we see John Hurt's Doctor start to regenerate into him, there's not that much wiggle room with the Ninth Doctor compared to other Doctors. Like, it's implied that he does some stuff before we meet him in Rose, but it's also implied in Rose that he's only recently regenerated because he doesn't know what he looks like.
Yeah, so there's that scene where Rose visits Clive, and you see Clive's clippings, and it's he was there at the Ninth Doctor was there at the assassination of JFK, and he was at Krakatoa and all these things. But then, as you said, there's also that moment where he looks in the mirror and says, "Look at the ears." So possibly he just had a whole series of adventures where he never caught sight of himself in a mirror.
He's really busy, just a really tough week.
Do you know what? Maybe that would be a running in-joke throughout these Big Finish adventures, that he just doesn't ever quite have time, doesn't ever quite manage to.
That'd be a fun idea.
Yeah,
just to get around the plot hole. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think there's definitely some wiggle room there. You know, let's be honest. Big Finish have inserted stories into smaller gaps before in the past. I think they can make it work. And also, the initial press release, there's no mention of Billy Piper. And as you say, you know, the Ninth Doctor's era is very much defined by Rose. He meets her, you know, what seems like pretty soon early on in his life, and then she's there with him when he regenerates. So Rose kind of covers the whole of his the whole of his time being the Ninth Doctor. So really, if it's not to say Big Finish won't announce Billy's involvement at a later date, but it's also possible that the only place these adventures really could take place, if she's not involved, is pre the Ninth Doctor meeting Rose.
Or, you know, as some people have suggested, there's that bit in Rose where he goes off, the TARDIS dematerializes for 3 seconds, he comes back and says, "Did I mention travel in time?" And during that period, he could have done anything. It's a time machine.
I know that's technically true, but I feel like it's so ridiculous, this idea that he sort of went, "Come with me," and she said no, and then he closed the door, went off for like a million years, and then goes, "Oh, that Rose girl was nice. I should give her another shot. I didn't. I've just remembered. I just remembered. I didn't even say it was a time machine after all these adventures I've just had with someone else. I'll go back, mention the time machine thing, and see how she feels about it then. Like, and also like it doesn't feel like true to the Ninth Doctor's character development that he went off in between the end of Rose and the next bit where he comes back, that he had all these incredible adventures. I don't know. It's possible, but it's also possible, of course, that they may just have the Ninth Doctor traveling alone and not specify exactly when these adventures take place, and leave it to the fans, leave it to the likes of us to place them chronologically.
That's not a bad thought. I hadn't really thought of that. I mean, it's
just get out of it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like I actually think I couldn't swear to it. I think that there is like a book or a comic or something set in that gap in Rose.
There's a few stories, I think, and Big Finish covered off the Ninth Doctor at the Titanic, didn't they?
But I mean, like, I think they specifically, that bit where he flies away and then comes back again immediately.
Right.
I think there is something set in that period at some point. I just vaguely remember that. I can't remember what it is though. But yeah, you're right. Like, Big Finish have done the Titanic thing. I bet they're kicking themselves about now because they did it as a short trip without Christopher Eccleston, only last year as well. But they've still got Krakatoa, I think, unless they've already done it.
It's probably been a comic or something. But we've got Eccleston back. We'll do it properly now.
They can mess around with it a bit, I'm sure. Maybe goes to the Titanic twice and just sort of idly mentions.
Doctor Who famously sank Atlantis twice throughout the classic series. So, I think it's fine to do Titanic twice or Krakatoa twice. Something I thought about actually when I was thinking about this is it might talking about that sort of pre-Rose, both the character and the episode era. It might be quite fun because the one thing Christopher Eccleston never did was that kind of immediate post-regeneration scene. The closest he came was the kind of, oh, look at the ears moment in Rose. But we never had that scene where he's just freshly regenerated and he's not quite himself and he's getting to grips with his new body and his new face. And you could even start off volume 1 of these releases immediately after that War Doctor scene in Day of the Doctor where he regenerates. That could be really fun for Eccleston to tackle.
I think that could be really fun. I feel like what they might do is kind of, I think I've seen some people say this on Twitter and stuff as well. Like the volumes will be a mix of different periods, maybe within that era. So like you could have, here's the Ninth Doctor, right after regeneration. You could even, I don't know if they'd be allowed. You could even splice in a little bit of John Hurt audio at a pinch, and then kind of have him kind of having that reaction and kind of finding out what happened in his first days, maybe how he ended up doing all these adventures pre something. And then you could do more adventures down the line, maybe with Billy Piper, maybe with John Barrowman, because, there's that period kind of running from the Doctor dances via Boomtown to Bad Wolf, where it's implied that the three of them go on quite a lot of adventures, because you kind of, there's some gaps there. There's not as many gaps sometimes in between episodes in that series, but there are a few crucial gaps.
There's always the cheat as well of just going, I've dropped Rose off somewhere and now I've left her home with Jackie and I'm off to have adventures. With the Cybermen this time. Exactly. There's always ways around it. And also I think setting these adventures kind of mid-series and not pre-Rose would make sense because otherwise what do you do about the whole companion character idea? It would feel like a cheat. I think it would feel cheap to add in a new companion, a Big Finish original companion pre-Rose, because the whole idea, as we were discussing previously, was that Rose was the person who helped the Ninth Doctor to open up after the trauma of the Time War. So for him to form any kind of attachment to anyone before meeting her would feel like it cheapened that relationship. So I'd be very surprised if Big Finish went that route. I think as you pointed out, Huw, in a feature on radiotimes.com, which you should all read, that it's more likely that there'll be a series of one-off companions or assistants, maybe even someone the Doctor thinks is going to be his new friend and then ends up betraying him or something, and so sends him kind of recoiling back into his emotional trauma again. Something like that could work.
Yeah, that works, doesn't it? That sort of back you could sort of lay in that extra stuff. You should be doing the storyboarding for them, Morgan. If you're listening,
I'm available. I'll do it for free. I don't mind.
Yeah, I'll want a fee. If anyone's listening. I think it's kind of interesting to think what could happen in these stories. So obviously, it's a bit of a muggers game to sort of try and guess what's going to happen when we have nothing to go on. But you do think, obviously, the Clive diaries, as it were, and you do think, you were saying to me the other day, Christopher Eccleston never faces the Cybermen. He faces the Daleks quite a lot. That feels like a kind of open goal, Get Christopher Eccleston with the Cybermen, that's quite fun. There's loads of other classic monsters, Sontarans, Silurians, whatever you want. Yeah,
exactly. And I think the Cybermen are like one big box that he never ticked. And Big Finish are fans, right? It's a company run by Doctor Who fans, and so I can't imagine when they got Eccleston, didn't immediately think, as all Doctor Who fans did, or Ninth Doctor and Cybermen. Like and Nicholas Briggs is heavily involved. I can't imagine they won't go that route. But as you say, it's exciting too that the Ninth Doctor can meet many classic monsters that he never met before, like the Sontarans, the Zygons. The possibilities are endless. One thing that I also thought though is that it's unlikely, or it'd be a stretch to have another Ninth Doctor Dalek story.
Yeah, that wouldn't quite work, would it?
Because if it's pre-Rose, he thinks they're wiped out, so that doesn't work. And anything in that sort of post-Dalek, Bad Wolf Parting of the Ways gap also doesn't really work. So it would be, I'm sure, they're creative guys, they could find a way around it, but it would be a stretch to have another Ninth Doctor Dalek story, I think.
I think you're right. I was also wondering about something like the Master, because obviously the Ninth Doctor is one of the Doctors who doesn't face the Master. The 11th Doctor's another one, so he's not the only one. But obviously some of the earlier ones. But yeah, I was trying to work that out, and and I'd like the idea, partly because Big Finish have so many masters on their books at this stage.
Plenty to choose from, yeah.
But you do sort of feel like it undercuts a little bit that whole, oh my God, the master's alive thing in, Utopia. Like when it's David Tennant's Doctor, like it doesn't quite work unless it's like explicitly, a much older version of the master, and like, you could probably make it work. You know what I mean? You could probably twist it around.
We're saying that a lot. Like, if it's a good enough story, they'll find a way to make it work. We were talking in our radiotimes.com Doctor Who podcast Master Special, which is available on our YouTube channel, that it was a shame that Eccleston never got to face his master, and because the master is always in some ways a reflection of the Doctor. You have Roger Delgado, who's the kind of suave debonair master, against John Pertwee's suave debonair Doctor, and then the sort of more manic, charming John Sim against the very similar David Tennant. What would the Christopher Eccleston's master be like? Would he be similar? Would he be sort of dark and brooding, or would he be the complete inverse? Would he be almost like the wild Joker to Eccleston's Batman?
That's a cool idea.
But like you said, Big Finish already have many masters on their books, and there are possibilities there which wouldn't necessarily undo the dramatic reveal in Utopia. So you've got Mark Gatiss's master, who is from an alternate reality. So by having him meet the Ninth Doctor would still believe his master to be dead, if you like. I'm sure there's something that could be done with the War Master, with Derek Jacobi's master, which I'm sure they'll figure it out. There's ways and means with Doctor Who, especially when it comes to time and continuity. There's always ways and means.
They could also do the classic thing, which is, it's the master, but it turns out it's actually a robot who thinks they're the master.
Yeah, or classic series masters. They've got Geoffrey Beevers as well, who the Ninth Doctor could meet the master at a point before he believes the master died, and he has that kind of conflict. Does he tell him what fate awaits him?
Eric Roberts is around.
Oh, I'm getting all excited to the thought of it. Eric Roberts' master up against the Ninth Doctor. Yes, that would make sense because continuity-wise, he is the most recent screen master. If we're talking sort of the immediate aftermath from Eighth Doctor to War Doctor to Ninth Doctor. So who knows? Again, plenty of possibilities.
Also, a thing I touched on in that feature is the possibility of we could do multi-Doctor stories, because obviously, really famously, Christopher Eccleston turned down the chance to be in the 50th anniversary special because he basically just didn't want to do it, which is fair enough. And scripts do exist of the Christopher Eccleston version. Stephen Moffat put a bit of one in a book that was released for charity, which is really interesting. It was kind of like he was very much in the War Doctor role, and it was, pre-Billy Piper being involved. It was like a little girl with Ninth Doctor. Yeah, and it's kind of interesting to see what might have been. Obviously, it didn't happen, but, now maybe something could happen. I mean, obviously, we couldn't do, wouldn't be the exact same team that would have had then, but, David Tennant's around, and he's doing multi-Doctor stories. He's doing a Tom Baker one. Paul McGann is around. Like, obviously, Sylvester McCoy, Colin Baker, Peter Davison, like I said, Tom Baker. It's like you could, unite the Ninth Doctor with any of those incarnations, any kind of combination you wanted, in a way that, like, never seemed possible, because everyone was always, I think, like, oh, it'd be great to do, more multi-Doctor stories. It's a shame Eccleston will never do it. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That was always the
kind of piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, that was always kind of the conventional wisdom. Yeah. And now it's like, well, now he's said yes to this. Who knows what he'll say yes to?
Yeah, yeah. This is the one thing. Is like I want to make clear. I'm very excited just to have Eccleston back, and with whatever Big Finish produce, because they're probably looking at people now going, oh, we're gonna have multi-Doctor stories, and they're like, no, like we've got Eccleston back. Is that not enough? It's just going to be 12 relatively straightforward adventures with the Ninth Doctor, which is something we would have never imagined.
Yeah, if we breathe too loudly, we're afraid he'll say no again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'd be surprised if at least in this initial run of episodes if we had a multi-Doctor story. That being said, I agree with you. I feel like the very fact of him being back, like we've said about things in Doctor Who before, Captain Jack coming back felt
that was
like
another classic of us having a podcast where we said, oh yeah, that'll never happen. What a load of rubbish. And then it happened.
We should start saying stuff that will never happen, that we just really want to happen.
Maybe we already have. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe this has been our long game plan all along.
All the times we said Eccleston wasn't coming back, we knew what we were doing.
Yeah, we were secretly pitching to BBC Studios.
But the very fact that he's back is such a surprise that who knows? It really does feel like it opens up all kinds of possibilities, including maybe, again, we're very happy with what we've got. We're not always hungry for more, but it does raise the inevitable question, doesn't it? Could this lead to a TV comeback?
Totally, because you think there's definitely Paul McGann again is the one I keep coming back to, where he was a kind of one and done Doctor. He was almost decanonized. Do you know what I mean? Like people almost thought, does he even count? The show did eventually kind of acknowledge him, but it was a little unclear for a while. And then but partly because of this Big Finish life he's had, the kind of continuing adventures of the character, they did bring him back for the 50th, admittedly for a mini episode, but I think it was a great bit of closure for fans and people really liked it. And who's to say that something similar couldn't happen? Christopher Eccleston, first he starts doing conventions, then he's like, oh yeah, I'll do some Big Finish. And he's like, God, it is fun being the Ninth Doctor. And then they're like, Chris, everyone loves you. It's the 60th anniversary in a couple of years. Look at your friends, Matt Smith, David Tennant, Jodie Whittaker, and a cardboard cutout of Peter Capaldi that will do a voice behind. Won't you come and join the fun?
But don't underestimate the power of Big Finish, because like if I think if Paul McGann had been genuinely that one-off Doctor who had only ever appeared in the TV movie, then had done nothing else for however long it was, from 96 to 2013, I'm not sure there would have been the kind of impetus to go, whatever happened to the Eighth Doctor? Let's visit his final days in this mini-sode, Night of the Doctor. I think because Big Finish had kept that character, that version of the character in that era alive, that was why it felt right to address that, because he was very much kind of a living, breathing Doctor, to such an extent that the Big Finish companions that the Eighth Doctor had are mentioned in Night of the Doctor. It was clearly drawing on inspiration from that era. So, like you say, having Christopher Eccleston back for these Big Finish audios, it may well possibly be a stepping stone to some sort of TV comeback. Although, one thing he did say about the 50th and why he turned it down was because when he read the original script, he didn't feel like the dynamic, the narrative for the Ninth Doctor was strong enough, and he actually thought the final version was way better, and it kind of gave it and added something, having the War Doctor in there. He said the final script was impeccable. The one I read actually with me wasn't as good. It wasn't strong enough, at least, to overcome his natural reluctance to return to Doctor Who. Now he is warming to Doctor Who again now, but I still think the script would have to be really good. Again, he's a man of strong moral fibre. I think it's a possibility he would come back, but it's not a surefire thing. I think the script would still have to be really good to lure him back to TV. Definitely,
yeah. And obviously, all this is just speculation and, early days. And, it's possible he'll just do this one series and be like, oh, you know what, I hated that.
or just be like, I did that and that was fine, but I probably won't do it again. This is the thing with Doctor Who fans. We sort of assume that the various actors who played the Doctor, they signed up for Big Finish. So now they'll do that for the rest of their careers. And there's nothing to stop any of them from, at any point, I think Big Finish have said this themselves, going, do you know what? I've had enough of that now, or I'm too busy. I won't do that. The fact that they don't, in a lot of cases, I think, is because they all have an affection for Doctor Who, and they go, yeah, okay, this isn't this isn't the be all and end all of my career, but I enjoy coming back to Doctor Who because I love the fan. I love doing something for the fans. I love the fan responses, and I think Christopher Eccleston is now getting a taste of that. He, as you say, I think he's doing this partly as a thank you to the fans, because he's seen the response. But that's not to say that he'll continue doing this for the rest of his career. So we've just got to enjoy what we get, I suppose.
Definitely. I mean, I think we can expect a pretty good response from it, given that his name was trending on Twitter after this was announced. Which is for a casting for an audio story is pretty good, I think.
Yeah. No. Well, this is it. There was a slightly snarky article doing around. I won't mention the website, a rival website, and someone was saying, "Oh, aren't the words audio drama just the most disheartening two words to a Doctor Who fan?" Basically implying that everyone goes, Eccleston's back, but it's not on TV. But the fact that Eccleston coming back in any form, for these Big Finish stories, like you say, had him trending high on Twitter. I don't think Big Finish is as niche. Certainly not at the moment, when we don't know when Doctor Who's going to return to TV, bar the upcoming festive special. Big Finish feels almost as mainstream to Doctor Who fandom, at least, as the TV series. And people will often say, well, I don't listen to Big Finish. And I just think, well, maybe you should. That argument of people say, oh, you overhyped it. I don't listen to Big Finish. Well, okay, well, you should. It's great. Go for it.
Yeah, your mileage may vary. There's
Yeah.
definitely some things people are going to find more exciting than others. But for me, this was really exciting, not just because of what it is, like what we're
Mm,
going to get, but kind of what it represents in
mm.
terms of Eccleston's past with the show, and like
Yeah.
the fact that he was wanting to do it is quite heartwarming. It's kind of like this goes against what I would have expected. It really wasn't something I saw coming. Like
Mm.
certainly not anytime soon. So it was really exciting. I mean, I guess I kind of with the audio drama thing. I think weirdly sometimes I kind of where it's sort of like, oh yeah, it's not the main series, it's going to be a little bit more niche, fine. With this, it's like, it was never going to be Christopher Eccleston is the Doctor again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's exciting enough. It's a little like when Tom Baker played the Doctor again in the Shada kind of remake they did that was part animated, and then Tom Baker pops up at the end, present day in the TARDIS with his scarf on again. Like, it's not like real, but it's fun, isn't it? And it's like quite exciting, and that was on the national news because it was Tom Baker's played the Doctor again for the first time in X years.
And we can't go back in time to 2005 and explore some parallel world like we were talking about last time, where Eccleston did a second series on television. That's not going to happen. He's not going to suddenly step in. Even though some people might like it, it's not going to happen that he steps in and becomes the current Doctor again. So this is as close as we could ever get, and will ever get, to having him back for a series of new adventures. It is that. It's just in a different medium. So I think it's like the best case scenario, right? That not only is Christopher Eccleston back, but he's not just back for an audio book or something like that, which would have been great that he's stepping back into the world of Doctor Who, but he wouldn't have been playing the Ninth Doctor in quite the same way. He's going to be performing as the Ninth Doctor again in a series of dramas, adventures. I think that's pretty much as good as it gets, given where we are now.
Yeah, the Ninth Doctor having more sci-fi adventures, like that's kind of really exciting. Like we had 13, and we just only had 13 for however long, and now we're going to have nearly double that.
Nearly double, right? Yeah, exactly.
It's gonna be really exciting. I'm really looking forward to listening to them. It is a shame that it's still like next May. We have to wait for Volume 1.
Big Finish recorded well in advance. There's Tom Baker stuff lined up to like 2024. So May sounds like a breeze. True. I can wait till May.
But if you can't wait, listeners, then we have lots of exciting Doctor Who and/or Christopher Eccleston content on radiotimes.com. As Morgan said, we wrote a piece about some of the things we've discussed in this podcast, some of the ideas we have for where the series could go. We've written about kind of the context and Christopher Eccleston with the fans, and also we've covered there's a little trailer and the basic news story, and some of the stuff about whether he could come back on TV. And we also have loads of other Doctor Who stuff. Recently, we've published stuff about a secret message in Jodie Whittaker's episodes. We pulled out from the archive a piece about the most controversial moments in Doctor Who, which did also include a Christopher Eccleston scene of him torturing that Dalek. Hopefully he'll be recapturing a little of that energy, or maybe a little less torturing, in his audio drama return. But yeah, so I'm really excited to hear, I was going to say see, what comes of all that. And I am excited.
As am I.
Good times.
You might almost say it's fantastic, which you couldn't let the episode go without doing.
I was kind of teeing you up. I was like, I bet he'll say it if I give him enough room.
You didn't want to be the cheesy one to make the dad joke and say fantastic. You teed me up to do it. I'll just do it.
I did.
Fantastic.
That way I'm the sort of still the cool and collected one, as all our listeners know. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, if indeed you still are. And yeah, tune in next week for another episode of the radiotimes.com podcast. Until then, I've been Huw Fullerton.
I've been Morgan Jeffrey.
And this has been us saying goodbye. Goodbye.